Thank you, Chair. I think we're good to go.
Thank you, Paul. Welcome councillors, officers and members of the public who may be watching on YouTube to One Corby Policy. Are there any apologies for absence?
Chair, I have apologies from Councillor Tom Beattie and Councillor Kevin Watt. And we have Councillor Ray Beebe substituting and Councillor Alexandra Wellings.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. Have any members got any declarations of interest they need to declare this meeting? Okay. Moving on then to the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 18th of February 2020, I think it should be, shouldn't it? I've got 2019 on my agenda.
On the actual minutes, Chair, it is Tuesday the 18th of February 2020.
Thank you. Are there any matters arising from these minutes? And can I see a mover and seconder?
Councillor Isles moved, Chair, and Councillor Sims seconded.
Thank you. Moving on then to the first report, which is the Business and Planning Act, and over to you, Damien, for that.
Thank you, Chair. So in summary, the report in front of the committee tonight seeks approval for the adoption of the Business and Planning Act 2020, the agreement or consideration of the agreement of a fee associated with the granting of payment licenses, and also to agree the appropriate officer delegations. So the Business and Planning Act 2020 makes district and borough councils responsible for issuing pavement licenses, a function which most councils will probably realise has traditionally been carried out by county councils. So the Act introduced a new payment licence regime designed to make it easier for premises in England serving food and drink, such as bars, restaurants and pubs, to seat and serve customers outdoors. The licence permits furniture to be placed temporarily on highways. And this includes stalls, tables, chairs, articles such as umbrellas, barriers and heaters. Alcohol licensing changes will allow operators with existing on sales to also serve alcohol for consumption off the premises and to make deliveries. Applications are subject to 7 days of consultation, and then a decision has to be taken within a further 7 days. If a determination has not been made within 7 days at the end of the consultation period, the licence is deemed granted. The local authority may grant or reject the application after taking consideration of any representations that are made. The Act also allows the publication of conditions and the addition of conditions to individual premises licence. If a condition of the licence is breached, the local authority may revoke the licence or may require steps to be taken to remedy the breach. Where a licence is granted, planning permission is deemed to have been given. Just so council is aware, the legislation is actually time bound and only is likely to run until the 30th of September 2021. Well, that's what it says. It's a time limited statute. So officers recommend that the consultation is amended to include the Business and Planning Act 2020 in relation to delegation of powers, and it's also recommended the authority to act under the Act is delegated to the Head of Planning and Environmental Services, Ian Smith. The Act also allows a fee to be set by the local authority subject to a cap of £100. The local authority can decide how long the licence should last for or leave it open-ended, in which case it will expire at the end of September 2021. The activity of administration has been costed and determined to be around about £99 without any enforcement activity, and officers therefore recommend a fee is set at £100 with no limits on the duration, so all licences will expire at the end of September 2021. So there are a couple of options in front of the councillors tonight. The first one is to adopt the legislation, approve a fee of £100 to offset administrative costs, and amend the constitution to allow appropriate delegations. However, the second option in front of councillors is to adopt legislation but reject the proposed fee of £100 to offset administrative costs. The amend the constitution to allow the appropriate delegations. So just so councillors are aware, Kettering Borough Council, East Northants Council, and also the Borough Council of Wellingborough have already confirmed that the new service will be free of charge in order to support the local economy, etc. Any changes to the Constitution recommended by this committee will also require the approval of full council, I believe on the 26th of August 2020. There are a number of issues that need to be taken into account, but they're fairly standard, so I won't read those out. Moving on to conclusion, the Act, or the Business and Planning Act 2020, recently received royal assent. The Act makes districts and boroughs responsible for issuing payment licences. This local authority needs to adopt the legislation and make amendments to the Constitution for its application and enforcement. This committee must also decide what, if any, fee should be charged for such licences. Moving on to recommendations is to resolve to recommend to full council to adopt the Business and Planning Act 2020 in order to allow implementation of the payment licence regime, to approve the fee of £100 detailed within the report in order to ensure the cost recovery for administration, and finally to resolve to recommend to full council to amend the Constitution to delegate authority to grant, reject or revoke licences under the Act to the Head of Planning and Environmental Services. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
There's a couple of councillors, Councillor Pengelly, Councillor McGee, and then Councillor Isles.
I'll take Councillor Pengelly first, then Councillor McGee, and then Councillor Isles.
Yeah, I've read the report in detail, and I've also spoke to officers on it as well. I think it's a no-brainer, really. It does help some small businesses that need this kind of facility. What I am not happy about, and I think we should take out, is the £100 charge. Other councils have done that as well. There won't be too many that come forward. And I think we should move forward on the recommendations after other members have spoken and agree on item 1 and item 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McGee. You're muted, John.
Sorry, Chair. Couple of things. First of all, I would actually put a proposal that we do not put a £100 charge on. I believe this is to try and help these businesses during these difficult times, so we can distance people away from each other in cars, pubs, etc. And that will only help the businesses that are struggling. So I would propose that we do not charge it. And the amount that we'll probably get is negligent anyway. So I don't suppose we would make that much money or lose that much money by not putting any charge on this, Chair. Can I ask one other question, if I may, Damien? You says that they only get 7 days. If you refuse it, is there an appeal, and who would take that appeal? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Damien, do you want to answer that question?
It's a very good question, and I think unfortunately I'm going to have to come back to Councillor McGee on that particular topic. I'm afraid I'm not clear whether there is an appeal. I doubt that if there is, but I'd need to look at the guidance associated with it in that, under that specific heading. Sorry.
If you can send that out by email, Damien, that'd be useful. Councillor Isles.
Councillor McGee jumped in with what I was going to say, because we do have a licensing panel, and if the authorised officer rejects it and there is an appeal, I do believe that the licensing panel should make the final decision. So I don't know if that's practical. In this case, means it's running for such a long while, I do believe that the licensing panel should have a place in any appeal.
I've got...
Sorry, Councillor Sims as well.
Councillor Sims.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to echo what's been said. I fully support this, but would also like to take out the £100 charge. As it's already been pointed out, there's not likely to be a big uptake on this, although there will be some. I'd presume probably mostly the hospitality industry, which, as we all are well aware, has suffered greatly during these economic issues, and mostly due to COVID-19. So any help we can give to them, I think, would be helpful, because they do, after all, not just their businesses, the people they employ are affected as well. So I would fully support that, but I'd also like to think that if there was an appeal process on this, that it would involve councillors on the licensing committee. And I'd like to hear what there has to be said about that. Thank you.
Chair,
sorry, Paul.
Councillor McGee wishes to come back in, I think.
Councillor McGee?
Thank you, Chair. I didn't wish to make it complicated, but on the appeals issue, you do only have a short time, I would imagine, to deal with that. So I would imagine everything would be online in such a short time. But we may not have that right anyway, but I'm hoping that we do. Thank you.
Thank you. Damien, do you need to come back, or are you happy with that?
No. What I'll do is, as soon as I've come offline, I'll look up the process and forward it to Paul Galt, who will forward it to the OCPC, if that's okay, Chair.
Absolutely fine with that. So I think, Paul, I need a mover for to remove the recommendation, do I?
Just to make it clear, so it's crystal clear, the recommendation now reads, recommendation 1 is unchanged. Recommendation 2 has been deleted, and the committee are determining there will be a 0 fee associated with the licensing process. And recommendation 3 remains unchanged as written.
Is everybody clear with that? Okay, can I move to the vote? All those in favour?
Sorry, Chair.
Sorry.
You still need a mover and a seconder. Sorry,
Chair.
Can
I have a mover?
Councillor McGee and Councillor Sims has his hand raised as well.
Okay. Can I move to the vote now then, please? All those in favour, can you raise your hands? Anyone against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you. Moving
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Damien. Are you off? Are you going
yeah, I promised my 9-year-old a Wii game, so I better, yeah.
You better go then. Thank you for your help.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Moving on to the next report, which is A43 Steel Road Marginal Viability Fund bid. Is that you, Ian, that's taking that?
It's me, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
The purpose of this report is to update members firstly on the Marginal Viability Fund bid via the Housing Infrastructure Fund, and the primary purpose is to seek agreement to procure the services of Northamptonshire Highways to undertake the next phase of detailed design work. Now, members may recollect that a report was brought back in December 2019 seeking approval for a feasibility study to be done in relation to improvement work on the A43 at the A43 Steel Road Junction, which are linked to the Price Hall Sustainable Urban Extension, which a bid was made to Homes England and was successful in obtaining funding up to 3.97 million to actually carry out those road improvements. So since that report was brought before members in December 2019 and approved, we've been doing that work with NCC Highways, and that review is now complete, which shows that the actual project can progress, and it is possible to actually with a design that actually works within the overall budget envelope in terms of the bid that we got from Homes England. So what we're really seeking for now from members is the agreement of effectively a working budget to progress the next phase of the work. So to progress the next phase of the work, which is the detailed design and project plan for the physical delivery of those works, we need a working budget of £360,000 to be agreed. Now that funding, plus the previous £57,000 funding that we've already spent on the feasibility study, can both be recovered as part of the Homes England funding. And the first tranche of that grant funding would be drawn down in December 2020. So we'd be drawing down 850,000. So that would cover the outlay on the original 57,000 plus this additional 360,000 we're requesting. So there's two options really for members to consider. One, to fund the design works, which will clearly allow this project to then progress. Hopefully we should be able to secure the whole of the 3.97 million of government funding towards our growth aspirations in terms of supporting Prize Hall Park coming forward and assisting us to deliver our 5-year housing land supply. Or the other option would be not to fund the design works. Clearly that could create some difficulties, albeit it is an option, because therefore on that basis, the full cost of these works would have to be met by the developer at Prize Hall Park, and then clearly would have to be built into any future viability of that scheme. There's a trigger on the current planning permission that requires these improvements to be delivered by the time effectively we reach 1,999 homes on the site. As of the 1st of April 2019, we're at 1,137 homes, and it's expected that we'd probably reach that trigger in 2 to 3 years' time. So if we weren't to agree this scheme, which I say is fully funded by Homes England, it may have some implications, both in terms of the viability long-term of that scheme and our 5-year housing land supply. So moving to the conclusion, Chair, obviously the A43 Steel Road project is clearly an important component in terms of our future growth aspirations linked to the delivery of 5,100 homes at Prize Hall. The agreement we're seeking is to set up a short-term budget of 360,000 from reserves to fund the next stage of the project, which will then be fully clawed back from the Homes England funding via the first drawdown in December 2020 of £850,000. So moving to the recommendation, Chair, is for the committee to agree that Corby Borough Council create a budget of 360,000 via a drawdown from reserves to fund the next phase of the project. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Pengelly, Paul. Is there anybody else?
Not Councillor Sims after Councillor Pengelly.
Okay. Councillor Pengelly? You're on mute, Mark. You're muted.
Sorry, my life. Yeah, I fully support this. I've looked at the risks, and what we're being told by members, there's no financial risk in any way. The only risk is in not doing it. So I think that I'll fully support this recommendation and move it.
Thank you. Councillor Sims?
I would agree with Mark on this. That's very rare, isn't it? And yeah, I fully support this. I don't think there is any risk at all involved in this, and I think there's everything to gain for the Borough of Corby. So absolutely support this, and if Mark is moving it, I'll be happy to second this.
Are there any other questions?
Nothing indicated, Chair.
Okay, we'll move to the vote for the recommendations then. Can all those in favour please raise your hands? Those against? Abstentions? That's carried. Thank you. Wow. Moving on now then to the Town Fund Accelerated Funding. I think that's you, Jonathan.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So members will recall that Corby was selected last year to be part of the Towns Fund cohort with the opportunity to bid for up to £25 million of funding to support long-term investment projects in the town. Linked to that project, at the beginning of July, the government offered Corby £750,000 of grant funding to support capital projects in the town that align with the Towns Fund objectives and that can be delivered this financial year. In particular, government are seeking projects that relate to improvements to parks and sustainable transport links, improvements to town centres, and the demolition or remediation of property where there is an immediate benefit. To secure the grant monies, the Council is asked to confirm to Government by the 14th of August what it will spend the money on, along with reassurance of the delivery of the projects within the current financial year. It is understood this funding offer is not a top slice of the possible wider £25 million funding opportunity. No match funding is required, and it is understood there is no clawback, although the precise terms of the funding agreement are awaited from Government. So in order to comply with the short timescales of the request, project ideas have been sought from the Town Deal Board members and internally within the Council, which has culminated in the long list of projects in Appendix 2. Committee approval is sought to take those projects forward. However, members should note that due to the level of funding on offer, we are not going to be able to deliver all the projects listed. And following discussion with Government, some of the projects will not comply with the Town Fund criteria. So as further work is undertaken to test the list of projects for deliverability and state aid compliance, it is proposed that preferred projects will be put forward to government on the 14th of August deadline, along with the list of backup projects should fall off the list. So in summary, whilst the timescales for delivering these projects are challenging, this investment represents an excellent opportunity to kickstart local initiatives in the wake of recent months. Therefore, in order to meet the government deadline of the 14th of August, the committee is asked to recommend approval to accept the grant funding offered by government, noting the attached list of projects, and delegate approval to the Head of Property Services to determine the final projects taken forward in consultation with the Leader of the Council and the Chair of the Town Deal Board. I'm happy to take any questions on the report, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Jonathan.
Chair, Councillor McGee, then Councillor Pengelly.
I'll take questions in that order then. Councillor McGee.
Thank you, Chair. Just before I do ask a question, I'd like to voice my disappointment of the consultation with elected members. I know it was a very tight time scale, Jonathan, and I appreciate that, I really do. But you had time to consult internally within the council, but not externally with councillors. And I thought we were a major part of that council. I could be wrong. I would like to have been consulted. I'm sure many councillors in their own area would have ideas to put into that. But having said that, Jonathan, there are some excellent ideas in there. And I would be as lead member for culture, leisure and communities, extremely interested in the arts, culture and heritage. And there is a bit in there about community centres. If we want to improve people's lives, and we saw the report that was in the Telegraph today about deprivation, and unfortunately in Corby, if we want to improve people's lives, community centres are the hub of that community. And I would urge somewhere like the community centre in Exeter that looks after a lot of our elderly residents, has asked many times for an extension. And I would ask Jonathan if we could look and see if that fits in with the criteria. Thank you, Chair.
Is that the Autumn Centre, John?
The Autumn Centre, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Pengelly.
Yeah, again, like Councillor McGee, I'm really disappointed that officers of Corby Borough Council got told on the 2nd of July that they had 750,000 to spend, and the majority of elected members got told 5 days ago when the agenda came out, and I got my agenda through my door the other day. We've got knowledge, we speak to members of the public what's going on in the town, and we're sure that between us we could have put some good ideas forward. You spoke to officers within the council, but not members, and hopefully that doesn't happen again. Part of the schemes you're putting forward, there's not enough detail on them. Pedestrianisation of George Street, the Deputy Leader of the Council's been trying for many, many years to try and sort out the fiasco of what is a dangerous zebra crossing and half of Corby driving through the town centre when they shouldn't be. We've asked for cameras to be put up, we've asked for Pelican crossings to be put up, to be refused that. And what kind of pedestrianisation will it be? Will it be buses can't go through the town centre, taxis can't, so that means extra fares? It's a lot of detail there that needs to be told. So a lot of the schemes are really, really good. Some of them aren't. And what I'd like to also put forward, and I mentioned this about a year ago, is around 10 years ago, we had a great scheme in Regen 1 for Corby, and that was with Catalyst Corby, and that was in regenerating the town centre with the cube, the swimming pool, the cinema and everything else. We have areas of the town like the old police station, which is overgrown as an eyesore, the old TA centre, the old co-op site, the old courthouse. Why don't we look at putting some money into Regen 2, where we liaise with members of the public and say, what do you want for the next part of Corby's growth to be? We could get people like who own the town centre involved as well. This could be really, really good for the town, taking us into the new unitary. And that's all I've got to say, Chair.
Thank you. Jonathan, do you want to answer those first before we move? I think Councillor Wellings wants to.
Yeah, Councillor Wellings wants to come in. If you want to take her question first, Chair, and then Jonathan.
Okay, Councillor Wellings, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's a question about the high quality commercial floor space mentioned on the town fund. And just a question for Jonathan, have we seen a reduction in demand and existing in terms of tenants for commercial space due to COVID?
Thank you. Jonathan?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I'm just going to try and run through the comments and questions as I noted them down. So request to include the community centre, the autumn centre within the list. I've got no problem with that. And we can certainly look at it. I mean, we are up against it in terms of deadlines, though, in terms of putting projects in and actually submitting what we're going to spend the money to by the end of this week. But no, I've got no issue with adding it in. In terms of the question about member consultation, apologies if you feel that the consultation should have been wider. But when we got it in, we went out to Town Deal Board, which does have members sitting on it. So we tried to cover the consultation that way, albeit I appreciate that could have been wider on reflection. In terms of there was a comment about the detail in the projects. I appreciate that. Given the level of time we've had to put it together, there does need to be detail fleshed out. The specific details around George Street that we're looking at would be the introduction of a toucan or a pelican crossing to replace the existing crossing that's there, which you've commented on as being not fit for purpose. And that would be the focus of spending the money. And we have confirmed with the County Council, obviously it's the highways, that they should be able to undertake those works this year. So we're hopeful that we can actually get that project delivered as part of the schemes. There was a question about town centre regeneration in terms of can we look at the other derelict sites in the town centre or redevelopment sites in the town centre. And yes, we can do. We can look at that as part of the town fund, and that's the idea of the town fund. And that will look at medium to long term projects that can be delivered, such as those sites. But that is still only for £25 million, and I'm not sure the £750,000, whilst it is a lot of money, it's not going to be enough to to solve the issues with some of those sites. Albeit some of those sites are coming forward with planning applications, and I'm aware some of them are on the market or in the process of being sold. So hopefully we will see something happen with those sites over the coming years. And then the final question was around the demand for commercial space. I would say just from what I've picked up, clearly office space, that's not in a great place at the moment for office demand. But certainly on the industrial side, there's been plenty of demand for industrial space for storage and etc. So certainly we've got no industrial stock at the moment apart from a unit, the Innovation Hub. But yeah, I think that was all the questions, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Is it Councillor Sims and then Norman?
Thank you, Chair. And I'd like to thank Jonathan for his comment on the consultation process, because I know he's up against it in terms of time, and I do believe that we could have been given a very short time to comment as councillors, because we represent the local people in our areas and know what their issues are and what their concerns and what they would like to do. With that in mind, it does say on the recommendation 2 about consultation taken with the leader of the council and chair of the Town Deal Board. I would like our leader to be involved in that consultation process on the final list. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Jonathan?
I have no problem with that.
That would be fine. Chief Exec.
Yeah, I just wanted to apologise for the consultation that wasn't undertaken on this occasion. But as Jonathan has said, we have got a bigger prize to bid for in January next year, the Town Fund, 25 million or thereabouts, and we'll devise a system of consultation that means members won't be raising this again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions? I can't see any more hands up.
Sorry, Chair. No. Oh, Whitman. Does Councillor McGee want to come in again? Sorry, I saw his hand. No, that's fine. I was going to say, there was a suggestion there that under item 2, the consultation also be undertaken with the leader of the opposition group. I think the officer's comfortable with that.
Do we have that to have a mover and a seconder for that change, or can we take it as read?
I think no one's jumping up and down, Chair.
Is everybody happy with that? If Councillor Watt joins us, going to have a mover then and a seconder for the recommendations.
Move, Chair.
Councillor Isles.
We'll have a seconder.
Councillor Sims has his hand raised.
Thank you. All those in favour? Any against? Councillor Wellings, are you against?
I don't think she was.
Oh, right. It's the delay. I'm sorry, on my screen. Okay.
Oh, maybe a delay. Sorry.
That's okay. Any abstaining? No. Okay, that's carried then. Moving on to the budget monitoring and draft outturn for 2019-20 General Fund, HRA and Capital Programme. I believe that's Adrian.
It's me, Chair. Thank you. So this is the first of 2 budget monitoring reports on the agenda tonight. It's slightly delayed, this one, because of the COVID. It normally come in about June, July time, but it's a little bit delayed because of COVID and with the fact that we haven't had any OCPC reports. So this is the budget monitoring that relates to last year. This is the easy budget monitoring report, really, because it's showing an underspend for both the General Fund and the HRA. General Fund £686,000 underspend, and the Housing Revenue Account £275,000. Those 2 amounts will both go to the respective reserves of the General Fund and the Housing Revenue Account. The main changes from the previous report, which were reported showing it was a slightly smaller underspend, is because we did have some grant income in for benefits late on in the year. The recycling estimate was lower than we expected as well, and the street scene contract made a surplus at the end. There's pretty much no impact on these figures whatsoever from COVID, because the impact of COVID came more in right at the back end of March, really, and is a bigger factor for the next report. In terms of reserves, where this leaves us is on the General Fund. We've got approximately about £6 million worth of reserves. Members will recall that it was around about 10 million, but we allocated £5 million worth of reserves to capital projects last year. Just in terms of those capital projects, I do have one amendment to point out to members. I'm not sure, I'll take advice from the monitoring officer on this, how we deal with it. But it's come to light today that on the very last page of this report, the top of it, CCTV upgrade, we should have carried forward the underspend of that of about £40,000. So I'll take advice from Paul as to whether I can just update the report here or whether we need a separate recommendation to carry that amount forward. But that's it. So it's quite a good news report, really, Chair, to show that our expenditure last year was within budget and we've got fairly healthy reserves.
Thank you, Adrian. Paul, do you have an answer for Adrian on that?
Yeah, can I just ask Adrian, please? Sorry, which top of which page?
So the very last page of the report, the very last table.
Oh, right.
Appendix C, right at the top, it's got CCTV upgrades and improvements.
Yep.
Right.
And that difference between the latest budget and the outturn should have been a carry forward, but it was omitted.
Okay.
Which increases the carry forward amount by 40,000 at the bottom of the page.
Yeah. I think as long as members are clear exactly what's happening there, I don't see any problem. So members will note that the carry forward total is actually 45,000, is it?
40,000.
40,000 on top of that.
40,000 on top of that. So that's fine. That's fine.
2.546.
Yeah, I'll record that in the minutes.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? I can see Elise's hand up. I don't know.
Councillor Elliston, then Councillor Pengelly.
Councillor Elliston, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'd like to welcome this report and obviously pleased with the accuracy of the report, which goes to show the good financial management, and even more pleased with the increased underspend, which will help to go towards the reserves for any impact of COVID that we'll be feeling in the next budget. So I'd like to move this report.
Thank you. Councillor Pengelly.
Yeah, I'll second the report, but there are one or two points I'd like to raise on the report. One is what Adrian talked about was the CCTV upgrade. Both myself and Councillor Addison have asked for a report to come forward because we need to spend more money than the 45,000 to get our CCTV system back into the way it should be. I'm looking forward to that report coming forward. I do understand that the emails did go to the previous head of housing who's now left. But I've been sending several emails about CCTV system and I've not had any of them back yet. I'm not going to say anything further on it. I'll do in the future if I don't get a response. And the other point is the Corby Culvert. There's two parts of funding, one 400,000, one for 103,000. That's now come out of the budget. I believe that also in the past some 106 money was put forward for the Corby Culvert. Is that this money or is that separate money to that? And what will happen to that 106 money that came forward to the council in the past for the Corby Culvert if that's not happening?
Thank you. Adrian?
Chair, I can only answer one part of that. I don't know if Ian can answer the second bit, but I can tell you this is separate money to that of the Section 106 agreement. So this is separate funding. In terms of the Sections 106 funding itself, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if Ian does.
I do, Chair. I'll continue on that basis, if I may. There is some funding in the Section 106 that relates to Corby Water Cycle Strategy. Now, part of that funding was going to be utilised to actually fund the Corby Culvert works until such time as the Environment Agency confirmed that those works were no longer necessary. So we still retain those monies within Section 106 funding. What the challenge we have now is we'll have to try and identify further capital projects that effectively we can say under the umbrella of water cycle strategy improvements that we can then fund, that we can then use that money to fund. So I don't believe that money is lost. We just need to now identify additional projects that we might be able to carry out utilising that funding.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more questions? Nope. The report's been moved and seconded. All those in favour? Against? I can't see everybody's hands up here, Paul. Those against?
Nobody against? Oh.
No, anybody against? Let's do this again so we're clear, please. All those in favour of the report, can you put your hands up? We've got some delays on the screen.
Councillor Welling's hand is raised. I think that's a full house, Chair.
Is Councillor Sims' hand up? I can't see his.
He's got his blue hand up, Chair.
Okay. Those against? Abstentions? That's passed. Thank you. Moving on to the building repair, community centres and sports centres. I think that's you, Chris.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. This report is regarding 3 facilities whereby we believe we've got essential repairs that can be, because of the cost, cannot be covered from the day-to-day budgets that we have available. That's Danesholme Community Centre, Hazelwood Neighbourhood Centre and Lodge Park Sports Centre. I'd like to start off by making an apology because there is an error in the background details, because I've said that Danesholme Community Centre is managed by Linwood Cooperative. I've got confused from the point of view of that we've got the same manager for the Linwood Cooperative at Kingswood as we do at Danesholme, but Linwood Cooperative does not manage obviously the community centre. Taking the roofs, we have 2 roofs that require repair. They're both flat roofs, one at Danesholme and one at Lodge Park Sports Centre. What we've been doing essentially is patching it up as best as we can over many years. We've had surveys done on both facilities, and the outcome is that they're saying it wouldn't be value for money to continue trying to patch, and the patches probably on the whole won't work. So we do need to do more extensive repairs. I've detailed the options. I won't go through those. I'll just make mention of the recommendation at the end. And the other facility is the car park at Hazelwood, which for many years now has been a problem from point of view of the surface. The surface has deteriorated further over this winter and into this spring, and therefore, again, in respect of surveying it, the view is that no more further repairs can be done to it. It needs a surface on it at the moment that it doesn't have. Chair, just moving to the recommendations. The recommendations are in respect of Danesholme roof is option 3. Is recommended 24,000.4 is spent on it. Hazelwood Neighbourhood Centre is 20,500, which is option 2, and Lodge Park Sports Centre 35,000, which is option 3. And so they're the recommendations, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? See, Councillor McGee, I can see.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I'm hoping we can all fully support these recommendations. Wouldn't it be nice for you that do visit the Hazelwood Community Centre to go around that back car park and be able to walk freely instead of trying to go in between the holes and the stones, etc. So that's a badly needed thing for our residents around there, and I'm sure we can support it. I wish we could use the internal budget for that, but like we don't have a sinking fund like we do at the Cube and indeed the swimming pool for our community centres and our buildings we have within culture and leisure. And maybe that's something we should be looking at in the future. I have mentioned it in the past in Warville, but it is difficult within the budget we've got, especially when things come up that are not expected. And I would appreciate the councillor's support to be able to sort out these roofs and indeed the car park. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I can see Councillor Pengelly's hand up.
Yeah, Chair, going into the Unitary Authority, which we'll be in it this time next year, I think that we can see what a difference we do in Corby, what a great job our officers and our volunteers do in our community centres and sports club all around the borough. I fully support this report, but I'd also ask that another report comes forward, and John said earlier that he'd look at it, and that is some of the leases on our community centres and other facilities are very, very short. And what could happen, and I think people realised only a few weeks ago, East Northants Council bailed out their private leisure organisation for up to £200,000. And I don't want our community centres, our clubs and other things going into private hands. I want them stayed within the community ownership. So I think we have to look at longer leases that organisations can work with. Some of them have only got a few years left. So hopefully that can be looked at in the future. And this report, yeah, I think if it's got to be spent, it's got to be spent. Let's get them done and fit for purpose. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? I can't see anybody, Paul.
No, I think you can ask for a mover and seconder, Chair.
Please, can I have a mover and a seconder? I can see John McGee and Councillor Isles.
Councillor Isles.
Right. Move to the vote. All those in favour? Hold down is up. Is that everybody? I can't see. Those against? Abstentions? That's carried then, thank you. Moving on now to budget monitoring for 2020-21, General Fund, HRA and Capital Programme. I believe that's you again, Adrian.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, whereas the previous report related to last year, this report relates to this year and it's a somewhat more difficult report to present for obvious reasons. It's the first quarterly budget monitoring report of the year, and it's based on the actuals from April to June. And then we use that to give us a full year projection. I should point out very early on, these figures exclude any losses or shortfalls that were incurred on the council tax income and business rates income, because I won't bore you with the details of how local government finance works, but these are accounted for in the next year. So these will be a cost that hit 21-22 and probably the new unitary. But in terms of this year, we're looking at £2.1 million worth of loss, which is entirely down to income shortfalls in cultural, leisure and property portfolio for obvious reasons because of COVID. That's been offset by £900,000 worth of government funding that we've so far had. So we've had 3 tranches of that, which gives us a net loss of £1.2 million. That's our best estimate for the year. This could be subject to significant change as we go on throughout the year because it's such a volatile position that we're in at the moment. How much that'll be at the moment or in what form it will come. Just to point out then, so the £1.2 million loss will come from our reserves that I referred to earlier, which were around about the £6 million mark, which was crucial while we built those reserves. And the reason why it was so crucial is members can be absolutely assured that we are nowhere near a Section 114 note, as some councils have highlighted. We will have more than enough reserves to fund this moving forward, so members can be assured in that respect. The only other thing to point out is that the housing revenue account is also showing a loss of £400,000, and that's entirely down to lost rental because of the COVID crisis as well. But the HRA also has significant reserves which can be drawn down to fund that. And I'm not highlighting any issues on the capital report at the moment, capital programme at the moment, Chair, because very little of it is business at the moment. And I'm happy to take questions, Chair. I've got nothing further to add at this stage.
Adrian, on the HRA with the rentals, is that just the delay in people being able to pay rather than a loss? Is it sort of a catch-up?
Well, at the moment, there's a significant loss of more than £400,000, but we are expecting an element of that to catch up. Our estimate for the year is that we think there'll be a bad debt of about £400,000 at the year end. Bearing in mind, that's based on £20 million worth of rental income, but we expect the collection rate to be lower this year simply because people can't afford it and will go into debt.
Okay, yeah, okay, thank you. Is there any hands up, Paul? I can't see any. Are there any questions? Elise? Councillor Ellison? Are you?
Yes, again, I welcome this report, and I'd like to move it. I just think the way that we've managed through this crisis could have been so different, and it's good to hear that we can manage out of the reserves and the unspent from the previous budget, which has gone into reserves. So, well done to Adrian and his team. Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more questions?
I don't know if Councillor McEwen wishes to come in.
Are you waving, Peter?
Yes. All right, man, hang on. Yes.
Can
you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yep.
Right. Just on regarding the loss on in rent, how are we with the loss on council tax? Sure, we'll probably have a loss on that as well, and people will get into debt on that as well, would they not? It's just a question.
Yeah.
Because I know a few people who just not paid their council tax in ages.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
am I coming through okay?
You're breaking up slightly.
Go ahead, Adrian.
I did explain at the start when sorry?
Go ahead.
I did explain at the start that there will be a loss on the council tax collection side. We're estimating that to be around 2 or 3% at the moment. However, the way that council tax finance work, that'll be a cost that's incurred next year, not this year. So we don't account for it in the year that we receive the council tax. We assume we're going to get all of it, and the loss is accounted for the following year. That's just the technicalities of how we have to deal with it. So it'll be a cost that falls on the unitary.
Thank you. Elise has moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ives. Thank you. All those in favour, please show your hands. Those against? Abstentions? That's carried. Thank you. And now, councillors, we're moving into the exempt section, I believe, Paul.
That's correct, Madam Chair. I will be taking us off YouTube at this point.
I just lost my script.
After you've read your script.
I will be there because I've folded on. Thank you. Exclusion of the press and public. The committee is recommended to consider the following reports in private on the grounds that they contain exempt information as defined in the Local Government Act 1972, and consequently that makes it the following resolution: that the press and public be excluded from the meeting during the consideration of the following reports on the grounds that they contain exempt information as defined in the Local Government Act 1972 as amended. Thank you.